Listen to me carefully, because this is not a gentle suggestion, and it is not a motivational phrase meant to make you feel comfortable. This is a divine alarm ringing in your spirit. God is serious, and this is the hour where you must shut your mouth completely. Not because your voice has no value, but because your words have been working against what God is trying to do in your life. Some of you have been talking too much while God has been trying to move quietly. You have been explaining what God asked you to trust. You have been announcing what God asked you to protect. You have been arguing with what God asked you to obey. And tonight, the message is clear and unfiltered. Silence is no longer optional. It is a requirement for the next level God is preparing for you. There is a moment when God stops responding to noise and starts responding to obedience. Many people think faith is proven by how loudly they speak, how boldly they declare, how many words they release into the atmosphere. But there is a higher realm where God listens not to your speech, but to your restraint. When God is serious, He does not debate. He does not negotiate. He does not entertain emotional explanations. He waits to see if you will trust Him enough to stop talking and start aligning. Silence in the presence of God is not weakness. It is the highest form of reverence. It is the posture of someone who understands that God does not need their commentary, their justification, or their fear-filled analysis. Some of you have delayed your breakthrough, not because God is slow, but because your mouth has been too fast. Every time God begins to shift something in your favor, you rush to speak it to people who were never assigned to carry it. You announce it to doubters. You explain it to mockers. You rehearse it in fear instead of faith. And God, who is serious about purpose, is watching how you handle divine information. There are instructions that lose power when they are spoken prematurely. There are promises that weaken when they are exposed to the wrong ears. There are seasons that collapse when they are over-explained. God is not impressed by your ability to talk. He is moved by your ability to obey in silence. There is a holy silence that comes before every major move of God. Before transformation, before elevation, before restoration, there is a shutting of the mouth that proves maturity. Children talk, the mature listen. The immature react, the disciplined wait. God is not calling you into muteness. He is calling you into mastery. Mastery over your tongue. Mastery over your emotions. Mastery over your need for validation. When you no longer need to explain yourself, you are ready for promotion. When you no longer need to defend what God told you, you are ready for fulfillment. God is serious about this because your mouth has the power to cancel what your prayers requested. You must understand this deeply Not every thought deserves a voice, and not every feeling deserves expression. God gives direction, not suggestions. When He speaks, He expects alignment, not commentary. Many people think they are processing with God, but they are actually resisting Him with polite language. They say they trust God, yet they keep verbalizing fear. They say they believe God, yet they keep rehearsing worst-case scenarios. They say they are waiting on God, yet their mouths keep running ahead of His timing. God is serious because words create atmosphere, and you have been creating environments that oppose what you are asking Him to do. There are battles you are losing, not because the enemy is strong, but because you keep announcing your weakness. There are doors that remain closed, not because God said no, but because you keep speaking doubt in front of destiny. Silence is not passive. Silence is strategic. Silence is the decision to let God speak louder than your circumstances. Silence is how you tell God, I trust you even when I do not understand. When God sees that kind of trust, He moves swiftly because He knows His work will not be contaminated by human interference. Some of you are in a season where God is rearranging things behind the scenes. You cannot see it yet, and that is intentional. If you could see it, you would talk about it. If you could explain it, you would control it. And God is not interested in partners who need control. He is looking for vessels who can stay quiet while He works. The moment you feel the urge to explain what is happening, that is the moment you need to close your mouth and open your heart. God is serious about secrecy because destiny exposed too early becomes destiny attacked. You must learn the difference between prayer and noise. Prayer aligns you with God. Noise distracts you from Him. Prayer is intentional. Noise is emotional. Prayer submits. Noise demands. God is not moved by desperation expressed through endless words. He is moved by faith expressed through obedience. There are times when God intentionally removes your desire to speak so He can sharpen your ability to hear. And if you keep filling the atmosphere with your voice, you will miss the instructions that only come in stillness. This message is uncomfortable because it confronts your habits. You are used to talking your way through problems. You are used to venting. You are used to explaining yourself. You are used to justifying your decisions. But God is serious about this season because He is transitioning you from emotional living to disciplined faith. Disciplined faith does not panic out loud. Disciplined faith does not argue with God. Disciplined faith does not seek approval from people who have no authority over your calling. Disciplined faith knows when to speak and when to remain silent. And right now, God is saying, the silence is protecting you. There is power released when you stop responding to provocation. There is authority released when you stop defending yourself. There is clarity released when you stop explaining what God has already decided. Some of you are exhausted because you are fighting battles God never asked you to fight. You are tired because you are responding to voices God told you to ignore. The instruction to shut your mouth is not punishment. It is protection. God is shielding you from unnecessary warfare. He is teaching you to let Him handle what you cannot control. God is serious because the next season requires precision. Loose talk cannot survive in precise seasons. Careless words cannot carry weighty assignments. You cannot step into authority while your tongue is still undisciplined. Authority flows from alignment, and alignment begins with restraint. When you stop talking, you start hearing. When you stop hearing everyone else, you start recognizing the voice of God with clarity. And when that clarity comes, confusion leaves, fear weakens, and faith becomes stable. There is a reason God allows you to be misunderstood sometimes. It trains you to value His approval over public perception. If you constantly need to clarify yourself, you are still dependent on human validation. God is serious about breaking that dependence. He wants you so anchored in Him that misunderstanding does not shake you. Silence in the face of misunderstanding is a declaration that God's understanding is enough for you. And when God sees that, He steps in as why our defender in ways words never could. Some of you keep losing peace because you keep reopening doors with your mouth that God already closed. You revisit old wounds by talking about them. You revive old fears by describing them. You weaken healing by analyzing it too much. God is serious because peace is not something you negotiate. It is something you protect. And one of the fastest ways to lose peace is to give your mouth unrestricted access to your thoughts. Silence is how peace is preserved. This is a call to maturity. Mature faith does not need to announce every step. Mature faith does not broadcast every victory. Mature faith does not complain publicly and pray privately. Mature faith understands timing. It understands that some words belong to God alone. When God is preparing you for something significant, He often removes your appetite for conversation. He creates a distance between you and unnecessary voices. He makes you uncomfortable in loud environments. That is not isolation. That is preparation. God is serious because He is about to move in ways that will shock people who underestimated you. And if you talk too much now, you will dilute the impact of what He is about to do. Silence creates contrast. Silence builds suspense. Silence allows God to reveal rather than you explain. When God reveals, no explanation is needed. When God elevates, no defense is required. When God opens a door, no announcement is necessary. You are not being ignored. You are being trained. You are not being delayed. You are being refined. You are not being silenced because you are weak. You are being silenced because you are being trusted with more. God does not entrust weighty assignments to people who cannot control their tongue. The mouth reveals the heart, and God is shaping your heart by shaping your speech or the lack of it. There will be moments when everything in you wants to respond, to react, to correct, to confront. And in those moments, God is watching what you will do. Will you choose obedience over ego? Will you choose restraint over release? Will you trust God enough to let Him fight for you? Every time you choose silence in obedience, something shifts in the unseen. Every time you resist the urge to speak, your authority grows. This is not about suppressing truth. It is about submitting timing. Truth released at the wrong time becomes a weapon against you. God is serious about timing because timing determines effectiveness. Even the right word spoken at the wrong moment can cause damage. Silence is how God protects the right word until the right moment. When that moment comes, the impact will be undeniable. Some of you are waiting for God to speak louder, but God is waiting for you to quiet down. His voice is not competing with your noise. He speaks clearly, but only the disciplined can hear Him. When you shut your mouth, you sharpen your discernment. When you shut your mouth, you strengthen your spirit. When you shut your mouth, you make room for God to move without interference. This is a serious instruction because the consequences of disobedience are subtle but costly. You may not see immediate loss, but you will feel prolonged frustration. You will feel cycles repeating. You will feel resistance that prayer alone cannot break. Because the issue is not prayer, it is alignment. God is serious about alignment. And alignment begins with surrender, not speech. Let this settle deep within you. You are entering a season where silence will speak louder than any declaration you could make. Your restraint will preach louder than your words. Your obedience will testify louder than your explanations. God is serious, and He is not playing with this moment. He is preparing you for something that requires you to be still enough to carry it, disciplined enough to protect it, and humble enough to let Him receive all the glory. While you remain quiet, grounded, and fully surrendered as He continues to move, arrange, uproot, establish, and elevate in ways that will only make sense later, when you realize that the silence was not emptiness, but preparation for what God was doing all along. While you learn to remain still and let Him finish what He started, without interruption, without commentary, without fear, without rushing, without needing to be seen, without needing to be heard, without needing to explain, because God was never confused and never delayed and never dependent on your words to fulfill what He already decided to bring to pass. Through a life that finally learned how to be quiet before Him, while everything was shifting unseen and unfolding beyond human understanding, and continuing to unfold even now as you remain in that place of surrender and stillness where God works most powerfully and most deeply and most undeniably. And now understand this deeper layer, because God is not only addressing your mouth, He is addressing your posture. Silence is not just about what you say outwardly. It is about what you rehearse inwardly. Many people have learned how to stay quiet publicly, but their minds are still loud with fear, complaint, and resistance. God is serious about internal silence as much as external silence. He is calling you to rest your thoughts, to stop replaying negative outcomes, to stop arguing in your imagination with the situations He has already taken responsibility for. When your inner world becomes still, your outer world begins to shift, because God moves most freely in hearts that are not crowded with noise. There is a sacred discipline in trusting God without needing constant reassurance. Some of you keep asking for signs, not because God is silent, but because you are anxious. Anxiety speaks quickly. Faith waits calmly. God is serious about teaching you how to wait without unraveling. Waiting does not mean inactivity. It means confidence without evidence. It means standing firm without explanation. It means believing deeply even when circumstances appear unchanged. Silence in waiting is proof that you believe God is working even when you cannot see the movement yet. God is also serious about removing the habit of self-pity from your speech. Self-pity sounds harmless, but it subtly accuses God of neglect. Every time you verbalize how unfair life is, how tired you are, how overlooked you feel, you are unintentionally questioning the wisdom of God's process. God understands pain, but He does not tolerate unbelief disguised as honesty. There is a difference between crying out to God and complaining about God. Silence trains your spirit to bring pain upward instead of broadcasting it outward. There are things God is doing in your life right now that require confidentiality, not publicity. Just as valuable things are stored securely, divine movements are hidden until they are complete. God is serious because unfinished work must be protected. The moment you expose what God is still shaping, you invite opinions, doubt, and interference. Silence is not secrecy rooted in fear. It is stewardship rooted in wisdom. God entrusts more to those who know how to guard what He gives. Some of you, in a season where God is breaking generational patterns. And that kind of work requires deep silence. Generational cycles are not broken through loud declarations alone. They are broken through consistent obedience and quiet endurance. God is watching how you respond when old triggers resurface. Will you react the way you always have, or will you stay silent and allow Him to rewrite the pattern? Every time you choose restraint over reaction, history loses its grip on you. God is serious because silence humbles the ego. The ego wants to respond. The ego wants to correct. The ego wants to be right. But God is not interested in you being right. He is interested in you being aligned. Alignment requires surrender. And surrender often feels like silence because you are no longer fighting to be understood. When your ego quiets down, God's authority rises up within you. And when God's authority rises, things begin to move without force. There is also a prophetic dimension to silence. Silence creates space for God to speak, directions that words cannot carry. Some instructions from God are not verbal. They are impressions, nudges, convictions, and inner clarity. If your life is filled with constant talking, you will miss these subtle but critical signals. God is serious because He wants to guide you with precision, not confusion. Precision comes as when you are still enough to perceive His guidance without distortion. Understand this. God does not rush outcomes, but He accelerates maturity. The faster you mature, the quicker you can handle what He is preparing to give you. Maturity is shown in how you manage your tongue. Immature faith leaks. Mature faith contains. God is serious because containment preserves power. A contained life carries weight. A contained spirit commands respect in the unseen. Silence is how God builds that weight within you. Some of you have mistaken loudness for boldness. True boldness does not shout, it stands. True confidence does not argue, it rests. God is serious about redefining strength in your life. Strength is not found in emotional expression. It is found in spiritual stability. When storms come and you remain quiet, grounded, and unwavering, heaven takes notice. That kind of posture attracts divine intervention without you asking for it repeatedly. There is also healing happening in your silence. Words can reopen wounds that God is trying to close. Repeating painful stories keeps pain alive. God is serious about your healing. And sometimes the instruction to shut your mouth is an act of mercy. He is protecting you from reliving what He is delivering you from. Healing deepens when you stop narrating your trauma and start trusting God with your recovery. God is serious because He is preparing to vindicate you. Vindication does not require your defense. When God vindicates, He does it thoroughly and unmistakably. If you defend yourself prematurely, you steal His opportunity to reveal His justice. Silence leaves room for God to step in. Silence says, I trust you to speak on my behalf. And when God speaks, His voice carries authority. No human explanation can match. There is a quiet confidence God wants to establish in you that does not depend on circumstances. This confidence does not rise and fall with opinions. It is rooted in identity, not performance. God is serious about anchoring you in who you are in Him, not in how others perceive you. Silence detaches you from the need for applause and criticism alike. It centers you in truth rather than reaction. You must also recognize that silence is an act of warfare. Not every battle is won by confrontation. Some battles are won by refusing to engage. The enemy feeds on reaction. When you stay silent, you starve the opposition of energy. God is serious because He wants you to stop fighting on the wrong level. Silence elevates you above petty conflicts and positions you in spiritual authority where battles are resolved without struggle. This season demands discernment more than expression. Discernment grows in stillness. The more you listen, the clearer things become. God is serious because clarity precedes movement. You cannot move accurately if you are emotionally noisy. Silence clears the path. Silence sharpens vision. Silence aligns steps. When God finally tells you to speak, your words will carry weight because they were forged in obedience. There will come a moment when God Himself will open your mouth, and when He does, every word will land with power. But until that moment, silence is shaping you. It is strengthening you. It is aligning you. Do not rush this process. Do not resist this instruction. God is serious because what is ahead is serious. The calling is serious. The responsibility, is serious. And He is ensuring that when you step into it, you are not driven by impulse, but led by wisdom. Now, let this truth sink even deeper, because God is not only training your discipline, He is refining your discernment. There are voices that sound wise but are not sent. Opinions that sound caring but carry poison. Advice that feels logical but pulls you away from obedience. God is serious because silence sharpens your ability to recognize what is from Him and what is not. When you talk less, you listen better. When you listen better, you choose wiser. And when you choose wiser, you avoid delays that cost years of progress. God is protecting you from deception by teaching you to pause, to weigh, to remain quiet until clarity arrives. There is also a holy separation happening through your silence. God often separates before He elevates. He removes you from unnecessary conversations, draining relationships, and familiar noise so He can realign your identity. Silence exposes who you truly trust when there is no audience, no applause, no reassurance. Only God remains, and in that place, your faith becomes pure. God is serious about purifying your faith, because what is coming cannot be carried by mixed motives or divided loyalties. Some of you have been wondering why conversations feel empty lately, why certain connections no longer satisfy you, why you feel disconnected from chatter that once excited you. This is not loss, this is growth. God is quieting your appetite for noise because He is increasing your appetite for depth. He is teaching you to value substance over stimulation. Silence makes room for depth, and depth is where God reveals wisdom that changes direction, not just emotions. God is serious because silence also teaches patience, and patience is power. Impatience speaks quickly. Patience waits confidently. Patience understands that God is never late, never confused, never pressured. When you learn patience through silence, you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting timing. Forced doors exhaust you. God-opened doors sustain you. Silence keeps you from pushing what God intends to open effortlessly. There is a sacred strength in staying quiet when you are provoked. Provocation tests character. Anyone can speak when they are calm. Strength is revealed when you remain silent under pressure. God is serious because pressure reveals readiness. If pressure still controls your tongue, it can control your decisions. But when pressure no longer moves your mouth, it no longer moves your direction. That is when God knows you are ready to handle responsibility without collapsing under weight. God is also teaching you that not every truth needs to be spoken immediately. Wisdom knows when to speak and when to wait. God-inspired silence is not fear, it is timing. There are truths God wants you to live before you speak. Left truth carries authority. Spoken truth without embodiment carries noise. God is serious because He wants your life to preach louder than your mouth ever could. Some of you are learning that silence is where courage is born. It takes courage to stay quiet when misunderstood. It takes courage to trust God without explaining yourself. It takes courage to believe that God sees what others overlook. This courage does not shout, it stands firm. God is serious about building this kind of courage in you because why He is preparing requires unshakable resolve, not emotional reactions. There is also rest hidden in obedience to silence. Many of you are tired, not because you are doing too much, but because you are carrying too many words. Words carry weight. Constant explanation drains energy. God is serious about restoring your strength. And one of the first ways He does that is by teaching you to release the burden of constant expression. Rest comes when you stop trying to manage perceptions and start trusting God with outcomes. God is shaping your inner authority. Authority does not come from volume, it comes from alignment. When your spirit is aligned with God, your presence carries weight even without words. People feel stability around you. Situations shift without confrontation. Peace follows you into rooms. God is serious about this kind of authority because it reflects His nature: calm, deliberate, unshaken. You are also being trained to hear God's timing for speech. Silence now does not mean silence forever. There will be a moment when God will instruct you to speak. And when that moment comes, your words will cut through confusion like light through darkness. But if you speak too early, you weaken the impact. God is serious about impact. He is not interested in frequent words. He is interested in effective ones. Some of you are realizing that silence is exposing your trust issues. When you talk excessively, you are often seeking reassurance. God is serious about healing that need. He wants you anchored in Him, not dependent on external affirmation. When your confidence is rooted in God, silence feels safe instead of threatening. You no longer fear being overlooked because you trust that God sees everything. There is also a refining of motives happening. Silence reveals why you want to speak. Is it to help or to be heard? Is it to serve or to prove something? God is serious about purifying intention because intention determines outcome. A quiet heart with pure intention moves heaven more than loud words with mixed motives. God is preparing you to operate from conviction rather than emotion. Emotion fluctuates. Conviction remains steady. Silence strengthens conviction because it forces you to rely on what God said, not how you feel. When emotions rise and you remain quiet, conviction deepens. God is serious because conviction is what sustains obedience. When feelings fade, let this truth anchor you. God is not asking you to disappear. He is asking you to decrease so He can increase His work in you. Silence humbles without humiliating. It strengthens without exhausting. It teaches without shouting. In silence, pride dissolves and trust solidifies. God is serious because humility is the soil where purpose grows strongest. You are not missing out by being quiet. You are being positioned. You are being fortified. You are being aligned. Every moment of obedience in silence is building something unseen but unbreakable. God is working in layers you cannot yet perceive, arranging outcomes you could never orchestrate with words alone. Stay yielded, stay attentive, stay still, because this silence is not an ending. It is a refining pause where God is shaping. A vessel is strong enough to carry what is next without needing noise, without needing validation, without needing explanation, fully anchored in Him as He continues to move with precision, wisdom, and sovereign authority through a life that has learned the power of quiet obedience and unwavering trust. So let this conclusion settle into your spirit with weight and clarity. This was never about silence for silence's sake. This was about alignment with a God who is intentional, precise, and deeply serious about purpose. When God calls you to close your mouth, He is opening your destiny. When He asks you to restrain your words, He is releasing His power. Silence is not absence. It is evidence that you trust God enough to stop interfering with His process. It is the language of surrender spoken without sound. You are learning that God does not rush, does not panic, does not over-explain. He moves with certainty. And when you align yourself with His nature, your life begins to move with the same quiet authority. No more wasted energy. No more emotional explanations. No more reacting to every voice in every situation. You are stepping into a place where your confidence is rooted, your faith is settled, and your obedience is steady. God is serious, but all what He is building through you must stand when everything else shakes. This silence has been reshaping.